Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Hey Everybody podcast, episode 87, home of this bitchin' new John Prine poster that my friend Lori got me. This is my third attempt at the podcast in like 15 minutes. I've been sitting here for a long time trying to do episode 87. And I keep getting like 5 or 10 minutes in and just going like, it's not right. It's not what I'm trying to say, and I can't quite articulate what I'm trying to say. So I'm just going to try to shorten it and be as simple as I can. Because the first time, I just got distracted by like little nuances and stuff. And then the second time, it got weirdly political, and I won't go into like how. There are lost episodes of the podcast. I think there's like 5 or 6 that like I shot it or shot most of it. And it was bad, and I didn't release it, and I shot a new one. Maybe someday I won't. I was going to say maybe someday I'll put this out, but I won't. It's the reason I didn't put them out is because they shouldn't come out, and it's one of the reasons I feel weird about what's happening to the legacy of Tom Petty, but I'll talk about that some other time. I did hear Mike Campbell's 2 recent solo records yesterday. And they're lovely. For those of you that don't know, Mike Campbell was the guitar player for Tom Petty pretty much always. He was in Mudcrutch. He played on all the solo records. I think he did some work on the Traveling Wilburys stuff, if I'm not mistaken. He wrote a lot of the music, and it's amazing to listen to. He's got a band called Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs. And if you listen to it, it'll really drive home how much Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and all that stuff was a culmination of things. And Mike Campbell was a big one of those things. And, they grew up together in the same town and lived their whole lives together. So even like vocally, they sound the same. It was a trip. Tom Petty means a lot to me. And we'll talk about that someday too. What I wanted to talk about today, or just what's been on my mind today, is we still have Towns, our dog. We're still technically fostering him. We're still set on that becoming a permanent thing. But he has a couple issues. He had a small handful of issues, and many of them are going away the longer he's here. I think this is the beginning of our 5th week with him. And he's doing really, really well. And the last remaining issue is kind of the biggest one. He has really bad separation anxiety. So bad that when we leave, we put him in a nice big kennel so he won't, get into stuff and that kind of thing. And we bought him this nice big comfy kennel, and it's got toys in it, and it's got water. And he's all set up. And sometimes he'll even go in there when we're all home, and he'll take a little nap, and then he'll come back out, and he seems to not mind it in there. What he minds is when we're gone. And what he will do is chew on this metal crate, and he'll bend the bars and sometimes break them. And sometimes we'll come home and there will be like blood on the floor. And I will confess that my sort of default emotions that come out are stress and anger. I think maybe because I've fooled myself into thinking they're more actionable than other emotions. So it feels like I'm still coming from a place of power when I feel those emotions. So I begin to worry that like the dog's going to hurt himself. He's going to, need dental work, and who knows how much that's going to cost. And we're going to have to buy him a new kennel at some point, and maybe get in the habit of buying kennels. And what if he gets out and destroys the house, and all stressed out. And we got in touch with a animal behaviorist, and she's going to come over later this week, and she agreed that he seems like he has some pretty bad anxiety, but she has very high hopes that we'll be able to help him. And I feel really good about that. When she found out that he was named Towns, she said, "Oh, like Towns Van Zandt." That's got to be a good sign, right? So he's a great dog. and we love him. And if we're home, he's a perfect dog. He's around here somewhere. He was sleeping on my rug here in the studio all morning. He's super chill, and every issue that he had is getting better, except this kennel issue. And I was defaulting to stress and disappointment, because it was hard for me to get a new dog, because it was hard to move past the sadness of losing our old dog Leroy, who we had for 15 years. And so we go get this new dog that we weren't totally planning on getting, and he came with some problems. And my expectation was we would get a dog and it would be easy and it would be great. And when it didn't go that way, all this like stress and worry and anger started creeping in, and disappointment and that kind of stuff. And what kind of hit me in the past couple days is that I'm reacting to what's happening and not why it's happening. Because when I focus on why he's doing what he's doing, I don't feel stressed out. I don't feel angry. I feel just immense sympathy for this poor dog that spent at least 6 months in a shelter in what amounts to a kind of cage because he wasn't great with other dogs, and who was transported all the way from Texas to Wisconsin, and no one knows how he came to be in the shelter in Texas in the first place. And we don't know what this dog's been through. And the reason he's doing what he's doing is because he is sad and afraid. And when we're around and he doesn't feel sad and afraid, he is wonderful. He's like the nicest dog in the world. And even Ollie was saying, like, it feels like he's been here forever. And it does. It's great. And the process of having this dog and getting to know this dog and adjusting to this dog and watching the dog adjust to us and that kind of thing has been sort of teaching me a lot, a surprising amount. And the most recent thing he taught me is that the way we react to people's actions and to our own actions is different than the way we would react to how they're feeling, And this is where it got weirdly political last time, because I talked about these 2 podcasts that I listened to, and the point of the story was when people do things we don't like in the political sphere, or, even followers of a politician more specifically, we just go, that thing they did, I hate that thing. And now, you know what? Maybe I'll hate them too. And that feels good. I get a kind of energy from hating this person, and maybe I get to feel smart or better than, or any number of things. But if we focused on like, did that person do that because somewhere in them, even in a place that they don't have access to right now, they're experiencing some fear or some sadness? And I find that very often the answer is probably yes. And you could fold into that, if we're talking about ideas people have, some ignorance, some lack of information. Have they not been educated on a certain thing? Have they been lied to? All this kind of stuff that at the end of the day could get you starting to feel a little more gently towards them. Empathy, possibly some sympathy, if you can do the mental gymnastics of, I have no sympathy for this action, but I could have a separate degree of sympathy for what happened to this person that made them take this action. And maybe, here's the hot button right here, if you approach that person with that empathy and sympathy and compassion, 100% you have a better chance of putting a new idea into their head that will stick, of finding common ground with them. And if that's not the goal, I don't really understand what is the goal. And that's been my struggle these last few years, and eternally with politics, is I don't understand what the goal is. I understand what people are saying, but then I see what they're doing, and I try to figure out, like, how are you going to do that? And then something happens here in the middle, and at the end of the process, this person now agrees with you or has changed in some way. If you're starting here, I don't understand how you're going to end here. I can't imagine anything that could happen in the middle if the starting point isn't empathy and compassion, even if it's really, really hard, you know. And it can be hard to do for ourselves too, which is more of what this podcast is about, and more what I think my main ideas are about. That like when we change ourselves, we'll be better equipped to change the things and the people around us. So I've been thinking more about not just what I'm doing, not just how I feel right now, but get as deep down as you can. Why are you doing that? Why do you feel that way? And I have found a stunning amount of the time, it's because I'm sad or because I'm afraid. And a lot of times the fear is irrational and it's based on, well, last time that happened, this happened, and that was terrible, and I don't want this to happen again. But then you go, well, a lot has changed since last time that happened. It's not going to lead to the same thing, so you don't have to have that fear. And you don't have to have that sadness and that concern and that worry. And when you acknowledge those things, maybe you can put them down. And when you put them down, the anger goes with them and the stress goes with them. And now you're just in a better place to handle the situation, you know? And life is just better when you try to really understand why things are happening so that you can feel rightly about them. Maybe they'll still upset you, but at least it'll be real. Or maybe you'll feel some compassion for yourself, or for a younger version of you, or for the person across the table from you, or for your dog, you know, and you won't have to feel stressed out, you know. You can just feel compassion and care for your dog. And you can regain your optimism that this is all going to work out and he's great. We're going to get this behaviorist over here who likes Townes Van Zandt and get it sorted and get this dog the life he deserves with the golds. I did it. I don't have to start over, I don't think. This could all go to hell during the recommendations. Let's get to it quick. First up, this band is called All Them Witches. This record is called Nothing as the Ideal. It's a good cover. Their drummer does their artwork. And I had been seeing these records at the record store for a couple years. And I loved the album covers, and I loved the band name All Them Witches. And I would listen to like half a song on my phone on Spotify at the record store, and I would go, I don't like it. But I kept coming back to like, I love the cover and the title and all this kind of stuff. And eventually I sat down and really listened to them. And this is a testament to like, sometimes half a song is not enough, you know, despite what the algorithm wants you to believe. Sometimes you have to invest a half hour in listening to a record and find out like, oh my God, how good is track 4? Geez Louise. So I did that and I really, really liked it. And I've bought a couple of their records now. This is their most recent record. And there's like powerful like 60s, 70s vibes. They're kind of a bluesy, you know, stoner rock. There's like Zeppelin vibes, and there's a country song, and, you know, long songs and jammy parts and great guitars. And I really, really like it. And I would encourage you to try it out. And moreover, I would just encourage you to try something that like you've been telling yourself that you don't like. But maybe you haven't really tried enough of it, you know, be it a TV show or a record or something. Up next, we haven't talked about this, I don't think, and we should, because as I begin the process of winding this whole thing down and putting Hey Everybody to bed, it's on my mind that like, oh, we haven't really talked a ton about The Clash or John Prine or, you know, Petty. And we haven't talked a ton about this band, Frightened Rabbit. This record is called Pedestrian Verse, and it's the first one I got. And it just occurred to me that the connection between this record and that last record, I walked into the record store and this was playing. And I asked the guy, I said, hey, what is this? And he said, it's this band called Frightened Rabbit. They're from Scotland. And I was like, oh, well, I dig it. And I bought it right then and there. And they became one of my favorite bands, and their singer-songwriter, Scott Hutchison, became one of my favorite artists in general. He, his way with words and his song structures, I just found everything so interesting and immediate but unique, and I love how Scottish it is. Like, you can listen to it and tell he is Scottish, and he uses terminology sometimes that I find myself looking up, and it's like, oh, it's Scottish slang for this or that. I didn't know what a breeze block was until I Googled it and found out it's a cinder block. Unfortunately, a few years back, Scott Hutchison took his own life, and that was a tragedy. It was very difficult, and more for his friends and family, I'm sure. But it was hard, and in a weird way, it brought me closer to his music. I can't explain it, because when Tom Petty died, I felt such a sadness that I did not listen to his music for maybe 2 years, and I still sometimes have to I gotta turn this off. I'm getting really sad. But when Scott died, I dove so deeply into his music and brought my wife with me, who was not familiar with him at the time. And it was wonderful, and it's made me love his music that much more. It's made it that much more precious to me. Basically, they're like a Scottish indie rock band. There's some folk elements. There's some rock elements. Sometimes there's some electronic elements. They're just a wonderfully interesting band. And I would have been so excited to hear what came in the future, As a result, though, we've been left with a nice group of songs and a nice handful of records. In my opinion, they never did anything bad over the course of, depending how you count them, 4 or 5 records. This one is my favorite. It's not their most popular, but it was also Scott Hutchison's favorite, which I didn't know, but it's fantastic. And if you are already a Frightened Rabbit fan, I've encountered a few people that did not know this existed. It's new to me, but this book is called The Work, a Frightened Rabbit publication, and it is the lyrics of Scott Hutchison to every Frightened Rabbit song. And it's laid out wonderfully. A lot of it's in his handwriting or in a typewriter kind of typeface. You get all kinds of hand scribbled notes as he first, was coming across these songs. And, you get maybe the occasional doodle. He was a visual artist as well. And it's great. And I think you can get it on their website. That's where I got it. So if you're a Frightened Rabbit fan or a Scott Hutchison fan and you don't know about this, now you know about this. If you become a Frightened Rabbit fan, which I believe a handful of you will from listening to Pedestrian Verse, keep going. Listen to all of their stuff. It's all good. And then eventually get this book. And if you're sad, if you're, feeling like you're at the end of your rope, don't do anything what can't be undone. I hope you go find some help, because the world needs you around. I want to hear your next record or your next book or, your next joke or whatever. Just, stick around. It's important. And time does a lot of magical things. You just got to let it unfurl. And that's that. That's the podcast. That's episode 87. Attempt number 3. We made it. Hallelujah. Yeah, that's it. I love you guys. I love this poster. I love Sarsaparilla. And we'll talk soon. If you see this when it comes out on Wednesday morning, me and my band are playing at Gibson Music Hall in Appleton. And it's exciting because music is exciting, but also because we're doing a full band but entirely acoustic thing, which I don't think we've ever done before. Certainly this lineup has never done it before. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So come on down to Gibson Music Hall and hear some music. Or, don't stay home and listen to all them witches. Yeah. All right. We'll talk soon. Bye.